Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we got an awful lot of questions. You can become a bitter pill by going to patreon.com/The Bitter Truth, and you can become a bitter pill there, support the show. My guest tonight is a friend of the show. At least I hope he still is. He ran for lieutenant governor last year against Lieutenant Dan Patrick and Mike Collier. As a libertarian candidate, he had a lot of good ideas, and we chopped it up pretty cool last fall. And I'm talking to Kerry McKennon. We're going to jump through a lot of different subjects tonight, but I really wanted to get his take on some things. Kerry, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great, man. Happy holiday, happy Memorial Day. Were you able to barbecue?
Happy Memorial Day.
You get some stuff fun?
I did not barbecue. I am ex-Navy Reserve. My husband is ex-Army, but we both feel probably the best way to honor those individuals was for us to have no more wars.
Thank you. I respect the hell out of the troops because they volunteer, and you know they're not drafted. They volunteer, and we take the best and brightest of these young folks, and you know. And we don't make it a last resort anymore. It's just the first line of defense or first line of offense rather, for a corporate oligarchy that doesn't have a single drop of blood or flesh or son or daughter involved in this fracas, and they just have no problem sending our kids to go die for nothing. And it pisses me off because these kids are brave. Thank you for serving because you did it as a brave human being trying to serve your country. And I just get really frustrated when people. We memorialize the fallen in this way that's almost designed to brainwash people into joining the draft or joining the service, and that's I don't know, and that's just my little 2 cents.
Well, I mean, I pretty much agree with you on that. I think that it's just really hard because there is a lot of, I don't want to say brainwashing so much as a lot of misinformation. Mm-hmm. That goes out there with, the fact of our military engagements, who they actually represent, mm-hmm. If our individuals are actually really, sadly, if they're actually really fighting for liberty or freedom,
right?
And sometimes, I feel like they're fighting for resources and to make the rich richer, and to me, that's not really the reason that I ever joined, and I don't think that's the reason that a lot of the people that do join think that that's what they're doing.
No, it's not.
I think they believe they're fighting for freedom.
Sure, and that's why they never get the backstory on any. On any adventure we get ready to go in. 9/11 was a horrific event and kind of fresh on my mind. I was at a pool party yesterday and had a guy, a few of us talking, and guy shook my hand and told me to go fuck myself, and he did. Basically, he's got family in the military, and I think he heard every third word, or maybe he was drunk, but I didn't disrespect his family or disrespect the military. I was just saying, hey, listen, man, I get it, but we're sending these people into harm's way for nothing. It's not. We're not fighting for our freedoms. I mean, can you name me a single war we're in the last 20 years where my freedoms are being challenged? And at that point, he shook my hand, and told me to fuck myself. So there you go. And he walked away. And I was like, and it's baked in. It's the narrative, and it's what you want to believe about yourself and whatever, or myself. But excuse me, no one wants to even ask a question anymore, or engage in the question. I mean, when 9/11 happened. I mean, Christ, who invented Al-Qaeda? Who supported Al-Qaeda for years? We did. So we knew they were going to go off the reservation. It was blowback. That's the term the CIA has for these kind of things. And we know what's going to.
Well, that the anti-war movement of the 60s and 70s and the pro-peace, the anti-industrial military-industrial complex has pretty much dried up and been wiped out through propaganda.
Yes, absolutely, 100%, 100%. And corporate media has 100% orchestrated it. Not even played a part, orchestrated it. But there's not a dictator rolling in his grave right now that is not envious of our corporate media. Hitler didn't have it this good. This is like Goebbels level propaganda. This is like, Walter Lippmann, Woodrow Wilson era, freedom cabbage and all that crap. So, but hey, listen, before we get too into the weeds, you had a big docket that you wanted to kind of chop up, and and I was really glad when I got your email. So let's jump into it. HB 4416 in Texas, and anybody that's about to tune out because you think we're just going to talk about Texas, this is actually kind of a big deal nationwide. I mean, it's not just about Texas. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Well, this is basically where in Texas is taking some action within their legislative houses to pass bills to move the percentage up to a double-digit percentage. And while the 5% that we have to get in Texas, and it's less percentage in other states, and in some states it's much easier to get on the ballot. In some states it's practically impossible. But we have to get that in the general election. Now that actually ended up not passing, and they moved something new that they wanted to move through. Which I want.
Well, they're not going to talk. They're not. They're tabling it until the next session in 20, right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
But they're working on passing something now to make it where it's 2 or 2.5%. But every single third-party candidate has to pay a filing fee, which they're going to use to pay for the primaries that we don't even participate in.
Right.
And it looks like that could probably cost, to some people's estimates, cost the Libertarian Party of Texas right at or a little over $200,000.
Jesus.
Yeah. And just in filing fees. Now, most candidates would pay that themselves because the party doesn't have that kind of funds, but they're doing, it's kind of that little bait and switch of, look, we're just going to say you only need 2% instead of the 5%, but you're going to have, everybody that wants to run is going to have to pay this filing fee that will then help us run our primaries. Right.
Well, and it's the same old song. And I had this morning on today's show, which I haven't really promoted yet. It's ready to go. But Christina Tobin from Free and Equal Elections is on today's podcast, and she talked about how she got involved in watching her dad, she run as a libertarian for governor in Illinois, and watching what they did to him. The Dems and the Republicans only needed 5,000 signatures. He got 25. He needed 25,000 signatures as an independent party or third party. He got 60,000 signatures, and they disqualified him anyway because one of the poll taker guys had 2,000 fraudulent signatures, but that would still leave him with 58,000 signatures. But what they did was they dismissed him entirely because, they said, well, the whole thing is flawed because you have 2,000 that are bad. He's like, yeah, but what about the 58,000 that are more than double what you guys required? Right? That's the kind of crap they pull all the time.
Well, and in some states with those signatures, they just take a sampling. So what they'll do is they'll randomly pick a percentage of the pages out, or a percentage of the signatures, and if of that sampling, 30% of them are invalid, they will assume that 30% of the whole entire batch that you turned in is invalid.
God damn it! See, and
and you can't just put one person that is for sure one name on the top of each sheet and turn in 50,000 sheets of paper,
right?
Because then but they're not going to spend the money or the hours and manpower to check every single one of them to come back and say, yeah, look, you had 2,500 that were not actually valid, but you had 47,500 that were valid. You're on the ballot,
right? Well, I mean, and this is just a spitball that I just kind of thought of right now. How many Republicans or Democrats got disqualified from running in the last 40 years? I don't. Unless the guy went to jail for something before the election, I don't remember anybody getting disqualified prior to the election. Do you?
I have never heard of an individual from from the two old parties that has been disqualified for signatures.
Right.
And I think I even heard one time where, and I want to say it was in California, where it was a Democrat, and they ended up giving him an extension.
Right.
To go get more because he was short.
Right.
They would have never given us an extension.
No way. No way, no how. But let me ask you something about this ballot access bill that got tabled or whatever. The main one that we're talking about at first. You think that could be a trend to go nationwide? And is there anything like that in other states that are trying to make it easier, or is that just kind of just a Texas deal?
Well, my understanding is it's just a Texas deal, but I've heard through the grapevine that other states are looking at it. So other Democrats or other Republicans are looking at to see how this is worded. Will it pass constitutionality? Not only the Texas Constitution, but federal Constitution, and see, to make sure that they're not going to get challenged in court. Now, that doesn't mean we still couldn't challenge it in court.
Right.
Should it happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's just right now in 2020, we have to get 5% in a handful of races, one of a handful of races, because, in those off years that are presidential years, in Texas, we don't have a huge amount of statewide candidates.
Right.
Most of those happen in the non-presidential years. So we have there could be a possibility that we lose ballot access and we don't get the 5%. But all of that ends up being, all of that is valid to the fact that they are trying to game the system.
Right.
But it's kind of really sad when you think about it, when we're talking about that we're fighting for them to keep it at 5% or lower it to 2%, and we, God forbid, they raise it to 10%. It takes 34% in the three-way race, and in some races, depending on what state you're in, you got to get 50% plus one,
right,
to win the race.
Right.
We're not even in the group of winning.
Right.
So it has nothing to do with whether we can win or not. It has everything to do with the fact that those two parties assume that 2 to 3 to 5% would go to them if a libertarian was not on the ballot.
Right,
and
right.
What they fail to realize is most of the libertarians probably would not vote except for constitutional amendments.
Right.
Or for local things that are happening on very locally.
Well, see, and that's the thing. I mean, and no offense, I just think because you're an honest guy, and most Greens and Libs I know are pretty cool people. I mean, I know there's all the little in-party fighting and stuff, but I'm sort of the outside looking in. So just from the outside looking in, I see, most of the folks I meet from the other parties are actually pretty cool people. But I think we just need to get rid of parties entirely and just go to publicly funded elections. I mean, let's be honest, the Republicans and the Democrats, and you know this, it's not even two parties. It's one big party. And on the surface, they kind of fight about guns and gays and stuff like that, but they're taking money from the same fucking people. Nancy Pelosi is not anti-war. Chuck Schumer is not against any war. There's like maybe one Democrat in the entire Congress that's worth a shit, and I mean sincerely, like for the so-called progressives that have all been co-opted for the most part, and maybe one Republican. And Rand Paul's not even like really a Republican. He's kind of a pseudo-libertarian, pseudo-Republican. But he at least he's got some integrity. I don't agree with him on maybe 50% of the stuff, but at least he means what he says. And he's always like he's trying. It seems Ro Khanna. He seems like he's sincere and he's trying. But for the most part, we just don't need these fucking parties. And the Council on Presidential Debates, that's a joke.
Well, the Council on the Presidential Debate has never been anything more than keeping the two old parties in power.
That's right.
It's and because of what they did with Ross Perot back in in the day,
92, 96, that's right.
they're probably even less likely to really let a third party or more than one, an independent, be in that mix simply because it throws a loop into what they want.
Right. Yeah, well,
I mean, I don't think that libertarians are going anywhere.
right.
We're growing, not just in Texas, but across the nation.
Sure.
And so as we grow, we just have to be smart to know that I'm not saying we got to play the Democrats and the Republicans game, but we have to have smart people running, qualified people running, people that have the experience to do the jobs that they're running for, or are so principled that when they get in there, they're going to make the principled decision
Right.
and the principled vote.
Right.
And then we just need to know that, what the Republicans and Democrats do is they start people out at city council and school board and county commissioner and move them into mayor and Texas House or state house,
Right.
assembly. We don't do that.
No, you and the Greens, you kind of go for the big ticket items. You go for Senate, you go for governor, you go for president. You guys, you both y'all kind of have a tendency to do that, and I kind of don't blame you because you're working to exact change fast, and I understand that. But there needs to be more folks.
Well, in some states we have to do that simply because of the ballot access. That's where the ballot access is.
Right.
We have to have somebody on the ballot in those statewide races. The problem is our best and our brightest are sometimes, put out to do that, and not necessarily myself, but we have done that in the past where we put our best and our brightest to go for the gold, the brass ring. And what really could happen is that person could run for city council and win those city council spots and move up. And we may not accomplish it in 2020 or 2022, but by 2030, 2032, that person now has built a huge following where they can run for governor of Texas.
Sure.
Or president of the U.S.
Sure.
We just don't do that. And it's frustrating, but we also understand, those in the party understand why we can't do that, why we have to do it the other way.
Right. No, I get it. I had Howie Hawkins, who's running for the Green nomination for president. He was on a few weeks back, and he was talking about his issues running for governor in New York, and he got some surprisingly high numbers for a Green. I think he got like 5% of the vote, 6% of the votes, some pretty high number for a third party. And the satisfaction he got out of that was at least Cuomo was able to take serious some of the things that they were addressing and actually get some of those things passed. Now Cuomo's not exactly loaded with integrity, but he's kind of operated like Nixon. He did some things out of fear because it's like, oh shit, 6% of the people, it could be higher next time, and so he kind of played ball with a few things. But speaking of statewide. Laws. I mean, I did. You did want to talk about there's 8 states right now that have passed some moderately draconian to severely draconian abortion laws, and obviously, as a libertarian, I'm very curious to see what your take is on that. I know on a personal level, there's one thing, but then you guys are so much more about policy than what you guys do personally. I wanted you to kind of tackle that for a little bit.
Well, the current platform at the national level and at the state level basically says that everyone can have good faith viewpoints or stances on both sides of the issue. And what we really believe is that it's a very personal issue that an individual has with themselves, with their family, their spiritual, where they get their spiritual comfort or food from, and their physician, their medical team.
Right.
We don't believe that the government should be dictating that action, and for some people, it is we don't believe the government should be paying for it, for sure.
Right, right.
So now my own personal thing is, I'm a pro better life for everybody out there. I think a lot of the pro-life individuals are really just pro-birth because most of those individuals, they want to force you to have the child.
And then they don't give a fuck.
And then they don't care whether that child is clothed, fed, educated, has medical care, housing, any of that.
Or a job. And,
or a job or anything.
So we schlep him, over to Iraq or Iran, and if he doesn't come back dead, maimed, or insane, we give him a college education, maybe.
Maybe. So that's I have a hard time myself with my own personal viewpoint of the fact that, the individual, the person that is carrying the fetus has that ultimate choice.
Right.
Now, I think that we get really into the weeds in some of these states that are using time frame to try to eliminate abortion. And
say that again. That sounded pretty. Say that again. The states are trying to use a time frame. Say that again.
That they're using time frames to limit abortion.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, so they're saying that you can't have an abortion after 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically 2.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
excuse me.
Most of the individuals in this country who do not have health insurance aren't going to having a monthly checkup once a month.
Right.
There's tons of women that I have spoken to who, because they can't afford it, they can't afford birth control, even though it's relatively inexpensive.
Sure.
They can't afford those. They can't afford their a Pap smear. Right.
Well, we got a country, dude. Half the working population makes under $30,000 a year. Like 63% of Americans don't have $1,000 sitting around for an emergency. Just $1,000. They're tapped out. I mean, and so what you're saying is important. And yeah, they should be able to go. But if they don't have insurance, and a lot of companies, they get you working part time, quote unquote, to cut you off. Like Walmart is notorious for that shit. And you don't get insurance. If at 40 hours you get insurance. At 38 hours, oh sorry, you don't get insurance. You can't seem to crack 38. Oh well, sorry. And but they'll gladly hand you out forms in the break room on how to get affordable housing and how to get welfare and how to get on Medicaid, because we're supplementing Walmart to the tune of $30 billion a year with that crap. But so that and not to interrupt you, but that's where these people are, man. It's like it's tough.
Well, and Texas passed a law where a clinic cannot perform. This was in I think the 185 session that clinics can't perform an abortion and provide that medical care, that the natal care, unless they can have everything in their system and have everything on hand for that an emergency room would have.
Right, and that
is the way that Texas got rid of a lot of them.
They got rid of a lot of clinics, and sadly, that was overturned a couple of years later in the Supreme Court. And then, because I had just moved here when that got overturned, and I moved here in 15. I think in 16 it got overturned in the Supreme Court. However, the damage was done because you had about 50 clinics that had to close because they had these ridiculous
those clinics are not coming back.
No, they're not.
And in rural areas, that was a doctor that spent money, nurses that spent money, suppliers that came in. So those were jobs, as well as the fact that, individuals got health care at a decent rate without having to drive the 2 hours or hour into the next biggest city.
Yeah. If you live in Mahia, you're 45 minutes outside of Waco. That's the next biggest town.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't even have as much as a clinic in Mahia anymore, or you're down in San Antonio and you're an hour outside of San Antonio, or if you're here in Austin and you live, say, out towards out past Granger, which is like a good hour away, hour and a half away. Now you got to come into Austin because Granger and Taylor don't have clinics. And that's the kind of crap those people have pulled. But I know the obvious. Okay, I know the obvious answer to this, and you dealt with a lot of this most of your life. Being a gay man in America, you've dealt with this kind of shit most of your life. What is it with government and their desire to control what they perceive as vice? Right? I don't know any woman that had great joy at getting an abortion. All my friends that have got the procedure weren't happy about it. I know some people that remember the birthday, and it's a deal for it's a decision they had to make, and it's not my place. They made that decision. That's their life. That's their deal. We can't legislate conscience, right? I can legislate action, but to sit there and call anything before a trimester is up a baby, and then you're going to sit. And then some of these states, in the case of rape or incest, you still can't get an abortion, and I forget which state it was. I think it was Alabama or Arkansas. The doctor is...
That's Alabama.
Alabama. 99 years the doctor gets. 99 years. Which means that if the guy raped a woman and she carried the kid to term, the rapist would get less time than the doctor... not get a term, but she got an abortion. The rapist would get less time than the doctor performing the abortion. That's fucking ludicrous.
Well, now they're trying to say that even if you left the state,
mm-hmm.
that
Absolutely.
Somehow, and see, this goes really even deeper to where the state is now saying that you're not a free individual, that you are owned by the state, because the state is now saying that fetus belongs to them, and you have no right within that to terminate that fetus. And if you do so, if you went to another state and you did so, that was their property.
Right.
And so because it was a member, at the moment that pregnancy was discovered, that was a Alabamian that you have now committed murder in Alabama.
You killed a future taxpayer.
Yeah, well, basically.
Yeah, that's the way I'm looking at it. I mean, they're baked in the brain with all this religion shit too. I mean, no offense if you are, but where that guides their lawmaking ability, that's where I go crazy.
Well, they're the same people that would raise holy hell if it was Muslims talking about Sharia law.
100%. This is what I listen. A few years back, when Ted Cruz was calling for death penalties for abortion and all that kind of crap, I think 2015 or 14, when he was kind of toying with the idea of running, I'm just like, fuck me running. If a Muslim said that, are you kidding me? We got Christian. I call him the Christian jihadist. These guys are Christian jihadists, and this is flat out Sharia law, like flat out, and in 8 states. Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas. This is crazy what's happening.
And it's going to, I knew that the abortion issue would always be an issue just because of the fact that it is used as a wedge issue,
right,
and that it is an emotional issue.
Right.
I guess I was just too naive because I didn't believe that it would become such a big political football again as it was before.
Right.
To where it was going to have to go to another Supreme Court decision of not about whether Roe versus Wade is the law of the land, but whether these states can now make stipulations upon that law.
See, and to piggyback on what you just mentioned about Roe v. Wade, for like 60 years now, Congress has just become a gigantic bunch of assholes. Because starting with Brown versus Topeka Board of Education, and probably before, I think the Scopes trial was probably the first one where they had to take it to the Supreme Court to determine, like education, right? This trend of Congress punting to the Supreme Court, well, let them decide. That was not their original function. And for Roe v. Wade to not become a federally mandated law, right, or to make it illegal, whichever, but to punt it to the Supreme Court, it just leaves too many. And it's been good for a long time, but now you're finding all these little loopholes where states can kind of go back and plug in with states' rights or whatever, because the 14th Amendment, federal law will always trump state law. But if it's not a federal law, it's a judgment. Excuse me. The state can then pull this shit. And listen, I'm not a big fan. Thankfully, in my life, I've never had to deal with an abortion personally, right? But I like the idea of the choice being there. People like to forget women dying, in droves in alleys or whatever. And who fucking cares what their reasons were for not wanting to have the baby? It's none of your business. Right? For whatever reason. And you know what? I mean, I've been saying this. My friend, actually a good girlfriend of mine gave me this idea, and I won't name her name because she made me beg not to tell anybody where I got it from. But it's a great fucking idea. And I like to say it, even though it probably is an example of government overreach. I like the idea of tying boys' tubes at 12. And then we reverse the procedure when they get married or certify a partner to have a child with. Right? Abortions go down by like 99%. Because I promise you, where there's an abortion, there's an uncovered dick involved. There's a non-condom pecker involved in the abortion. And that motherfucker gets to just go scot-free and not deal with it. Meanwhile, the woman in 8 states now is looking at being tried for murder.
Yeah. Well, now, I truly believe that science will develop a way where this will be completely obsolete. Sorry, I had to sneeze.
That's okay. Bless you.
And what I mean is what's going to happen is science is going to make it to where at any given point in that pregnancy that fetus can come out and be placed in a artificial womb. And then we remove that whole, when does life begin? When does that bunch of cells gain a soul?
Right.
Which is really what the religious people are really arguing about, is when does that bunch of cells, when does that fetus have a soul?
But this is I'm not to interrupt. This is the thing that drives me fucking batty. I don't give a shit what your fairy tale tells you, man. There's 4,000 religions. I'm not making that number up. That's an actual number. There's 4,000 religions in this world. There's 30 variations on the Christ story, right? The most latest is Jesus, and he's the most popular one. Vishnu has a story. Horus has a story. They all got a fucking story. Muhammad, he's got a story, right? That's why the Dome of the Mosque is built, or the Dome of the Rock, rather, is built in Jerusalem, because supposedly that's where he ascended to heaven on a white horse. Not crucified, not dead. He just went up, flesh and blood, on a white horse, right into heaven. And everyone's got a fucking story, right? I don't care about Spider-Man or Cinderella. And so everything you're saying, I agree with you, and I know what you mean. But as a libertarian, and I know a lot of religious, quote, libertarians, but what libertarians seem to be good at, even though I don't agree with like half the stuff, what you all seem to be good at is separating your personal thing from what you think the law of the land ought to be. Is that inaccurate?
Well, I think that's true. The issue with libertarians is because we value life and we do fight for the right for everyone to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and for everyone's liberty, there's a battle in many libertarians of when is that an actual life that we should be protecting.
Right. Right.
Now, there are some libertarians that are, look, it's a, I don't want to say parasite, but it is dependent upon another human being. And until it can live outside the womb on its own, then its complete and entire life is in the hands of another individual to choose with as they see fit.
Would that metric extend the time, you think? Like if instead of a heartbeat law, if they said the outside, because my cousin was born premature. We're the same age, so I don't remember it. I just was told he was born 6 months premature, and they had to throw him in an incubator. But he had all his stuff together, his fingers, toes, whatever, and so he had to hang out in an incubator for a couple of months, and grow. And now he's my age, grown ass man. But would that be a metric, you think, that would be more reasonable? Or
well, I think it would have to be a huge debate among scientists, especially obstetricians and pediatricians, and to help determine. I don't think that our lawmakers and those that are on each side of this issue actually reach out to women and ask them their reasonings.
Right.
And because I don't think there are women that are out there that are seek abortion as a form of birth control.
I don't know anybody that does. It's a last resort option.
I think that when they go in, and I hope, because I've known several women that have gone through the process, and some that have decided to continue, and some that have decided not to. But I know that I'm hoping that when they get in there, that they're being presented with all the different options that are on the table.
Right.
Before they choose that option.
Right.
The thing is we're not sitting down and having a conversation amongst mothers and fathers,
right,
or egg and sperm donors,
sure,
because they may not consider themselves those terms yet. We're not having those sit-down conversations with actual doctors. We're not having those conversations with, and I'm not talking about doctors that are already on either side of the issues, unbiased doctors that can just tell us the information that we need to know scientifically about the fetus. And then, after we talk to them, should we choose to bring in spiritual leaders, we can. But so often we start with the spiritual leaders and what they think is right and wrong based on sin and based on, morals.
Right.
And that's not necessarily, to me, the way to legislate our country. And that's not the way to make our laws. So if we're going to, if that's the way you want to do it, then just say that's what you're doing.
Sure.
At least have the cojones to say, hey, I'm going to do this based on the Bible, the Christian Bible, and I don't care whether it infringes upon anybody's else's liberties or not.
Well, it kind of gets us to another point that you made, in your email. I mean, isn't that kind of the challenge we're having with this monopoly? It's not even a duopoly. We say duopoly. That's wishful thinking. I mean, the people in power that offer us, freedom and then just give us a status quo and don't really make any changes and don't really fight for anything. They're worried about what their poll numbers will say. I mean, why do we keep doing the same thing over and over? And why are people cool? For example, I know Republicans that have had abortions. That one dickhead legislator in one of the states that approved this shit got nailed. He was a 65-year-old guy, got nailed getting his 35-year-old mistress an abortion. right? And she kept the paperwork. You got busted. I'm like, okay, so you fucking prick. You're a liar. You're not even your quote Christian values, aren't even coming into play. You're like James Spader in every '80s movie that ever happened. So why do you think we buy into this crap all the time? I mean, as a quick side note, I'm not buying Bernie this time around. If he gets the nomination, yeah, I might vote for him, but he's not going to get it. He's going to get cheated again. The Democrats already figure 9 ways a Sunday to cheat him or Tulsi.
On all sides.
Yep. Or
you know as well as I do, on all sides, Democrats and Republicans, it is dictate what you should be doing, but I'm going to do what is convenient and beneficial
for
to
me. Dianne Feinstein has a concealed weapons permit. She carries a pistol in her purse, but she's going to tell me I can't have a gun or whatever. I mean, but continue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Once she started that whole thing, I lost any respect I ever had for her.
Sure. Oh, you had respect for her at one point? I don't remember. But
well, it was a little bit. I mean, I want everybody to have food.
Right.
I just look at it and I say, okay, wait a second. Is the government the best person or the best entity or the best organization to provide that food? Or are local charitable community organizations and individuals the better ones to provide for the needs of the people in their own community?
Well, why not both? I mean, we lay taxes on people. Why not have the taxes go to a value? I mean, you could take the $1.2 trillion we spend on defense, and with that money, feed, clothe, house pretty much everybody on Earth, not one person being exempted, and probably even go into space. So why not do both? I mean, I just saw an article today, I think yesterday. Some church paid out $2.2 million to help about 150 people, more than 150 people. I think it was like 1,000 people, 1,500 people, save their homes. Just one little church, and they had enough in the coffers. Hey, man, let's bail out these folks that are in our community. So, speaking to your point,
I'm not saying that it can't be both, but here's the thing. To your point of the fact that we have $1.2 trillion or more going toward defense, I don't have a say where my taxes go.
At all.
I have a say when I take that same $10,000 a year in taxes and give it to the local school here.
Mm-hmm.
Or to the homeless shelter here.
Right.
Or to say that the bridge over the creek needs to be replaced, and I give it to infrastructure. But when I get my $10,000 in taxes, and I may choose to give more than $10,000. I may choose to say I only want to give $8,000 or nothing. But when I choose to give it and choose to what it goes to, then I'm more apt to give more and help more people. Because I know the reason so many people that don't give to charity right now is because they feel like they're taxed to death. And, well, I'm taxed so that the roads can be fixed. I'm taxed so that the kids can go to school. I'm taxed so that individuals that are poor can have housing and health care and food. Why do I need to give more? Why do I need to do anything? The problem is most of them don't also realize that their tax dollars of what they're talking about and they complain about is a very small percentage is going to help the poor.
It's 70 cents on the dollar goes to weapons. Not even defense. We're not defending shit. Weapons. Yeah. Weapons.
I think it's like half a penny that goes to welfare.
It's ridiculously low. And so I'm kind of the mind that you don't need a bunch of government, but you need them in the right ways. I don't mind this Ayn Rand shit, by the way, who she died on Medicare and Social Security, so she can blow me. But the thing is that because human nature is designed to overreach. I mean, and I'm not even religious, but even the Bible talks about that we're born in sin, as it were, because we're tempted. We're tempted of the flesh. Tempted in every way possible. I'm tempted on Facebook. I'm tempted all over the place. Everyone is tempted. There's not a person that isn't tempted. If there was no temptation, you wouldn't need laws. You wouldn't need jails. So there's got to be something there. You know, the deregulating the banks in 1999 with Larry Summers and Rubin and Clinton and that knothead Alan Greenspan. Bang up job, assholes. Because by 2008, the economy fucking crashed. And why? Because those dickheads at AIG and Bank of America and Goldman Sachs and everywhere else ran amok, human nature unchecked, doing the greed is good gecko crap. So there's got to be some regulation there because human nature is designed to overreach. Otherwise, we don't need cops. You know, the murder quota got met. They're not going to be killing them anymore this week. We can go home. That's not how human beings are. So I see what you're saying on one hand where it's too much, but on the other hand, not at all. And that's going to be good for nobody.
But you also know that based on those statistics, the fact that the amount that is being spent on other things that are in my viewpoint unimportant, and that's my own personal viewpoint.
I get you. No,
I think some people think we need to spend more money on the military.
Now, those people are called idiots, by the way. Those people hear every third word of a conversation, and they still believe in American exceptionalism and think John Wayne was real. John Wayne was an utter fucking douchebag who got booed out of a hospital in World War II in 1943 because he showed up to a clinic in Hawaii. Guys recovering from finding the Japanese, and he showed up with his dopey cowboy outfit, a grown-ass man with a cowboy hat, spurs, and 2 6-shooters. He got booed out of the fucking hospital. These guys actually got shot. They actually lost a leg. And here's Marion Michael Morrison, who got an exemption from his fucking film studio. That is this country. That is that profile right there. We cannot reconcile our ideals with our sins. So we want to think we're John Wayne? We ain't John Wayne. I'd rather be complicated like Jimmy Stewart. I'd rather be complicated like Audie Murphy, because that's complicated. You got to go. You got to go kill somebody, and you got to come back and live with the rest of your life. Bob Kerry, a couple of years back, finally admitted he was sick and tired of being called a Vietnam War hero because he explained exactly what happened in the incident that, quote, made him a hero, and he felt nothing heroic about it. And he lost a leg in Vietnam, if you recall. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I never in any of the stuff that I've ever done campaigning, I never say that that I was a naval reservist, because I never saw any action. I never went overseas. I was just a reservist. I didn't do anything.
Right. No, I got you.
There was no glory to be had in that.
Listen, the joke I made when Colin Kaepernick was taking a knee, almost to the man, my quote unquote military people were all saying, "Well, I took an oath to protect and foreign and domestic." Dude, he's taking a fucking knee, and to the man, every one of those guys that I know that say that shit are just like you. They didn't see anything. The guys that I know that saw stuff, different opinion. They're like, "Well, that's what we fought for." Two different opinions. If you're appealing, but
I had no problem with him taking it.
No, I know you didn't, because you're an evolved human being and you understand rights.
I'm like, do what you want to do. It didn't. It did not affect me or infringe upon my liberty. So why did I care that you took a knee?
Thank you. Okay, you're the goddamn voice of reason. Listen, we're coming kind of to the end of time here, but I want to talk about get your opinion on some of this other stuff too. So I mean, segueing into the presidential race. What do you see? We got 25 Democrats. I personally think it's a plot to run Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard out of the deal, because it's got to go to the second ballot. If it goes to the second ballot, then the superdelegates weigh in. And if the superdelegates weigh in, those people are fucked. So, but that's my little, bite-sized thumbnail. So what are you seeing in the presidential race? I think 2020 is going to be the year of Trump, because the Committee to Reelect Donald Trump, also known as the DNC, is busting their ass to get a corporatist in there again to do the same Hillary Clinton campaign. I could be wrong.
Well, I think Trump will win again.
Mm-hmm.
That's my prediction. I think that Beto O'Rourke was stupid and he should have ran for senator, because corn is ripe for picking off in Texas. I love the fact that they have an openly gay man running.
Oh, Pete Buttigieg?
Yeah.
that guy's an identity politics whore. He's the gay Obama. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I mean, I'm glad that he's running, but it's almost like vote for me because I'm gay.
Mm-hmm.
You need to do it because if you don't,
then you got problems.
You're a bad
You're
person.
a homophobe. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I don't like your policies. They're shit, but why would I vote for you?
He doesn't even have any. Like I saw an interview a few weeks back. Yeah. It was a press conference, and some reporter asked me, so what are your policies? Well, we had our values in place first, and then we're going to come up with our policies. Really? You don't know what you believe? You don't know what you believe. You're working on your values?
How can you not know if you're already running?
Yeah, you're already running. You don't know what your values are, and you haven't really thought much about your policies? Go fuck yourself. I'm sorry.
That reporter should have said, well, I guess I better not ask you a hard question. I guess I better not ask you what your stance are on drugs, guns, abortion, taxes, the economy, foreign affairs. I mean, I guess I better not ask you about any of that shit because obviously you need to get your
values.
You need to get yourself in order first before you can answer.
You gotta get your values straight. Consult with Nancy Pelosi.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh my God, your values, your values. That's. What a bullshit answer.
100%, man, and that's what most of these people run on. These like fake. I mean, I'm not a Democrat fan, to be very blunt. And I know Tulsi Gabbard's problems, but of all those people, she's the only one that I like because she's the only one that's like actually talking about stuff. She's like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this, and she can face those clams on The View, for example, or CNN or MSDNC because she's been shot at. I'm sure the volume is turned way down for her. Because she schools these people. She gets on these press conferences. She gets on these interviews, and she'll have 4 or 5 reporters, unquote, attacking her, and she's just like gnats on her shoulder. She doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
and the
Democrats are going to have last year, 2018 and 2020 will be building for them. I don't expect the Republican to win in 2024, just because I think there's enough people that are anti the whole religious stuff that they will come out in droves against Mike Pence.
Oh yeah, that guy's a jihadist. Yeah.
And the only reason that Trump chose him is to secure the religious right base.
Dude, he had the highest evangelical vote of any president in the last 40 years. Yeah, 81% of evangelicals. Scary. Yeah, more than Bush, more than Reagan. I mean W, because HW didn't have a big evangelical vote, I don't think, but Reagan had a huge evangelical vote. And this is right, like in the mid '70s when that stuff started happening, because it wasn't the language of the time when Nixon and Eisenhower were president. And all of a sudden, in 1976, Jerry Falwell came out.
So we have to get the silent majority.
Well, that's right. And that's where Jerry Falwell came out. And he was like, we got to come out of the closets and all that. And he was like taking language and appropriating it to the Christian right. And by 1980, man, they were influencing everything. And
that's when I had really good friends that were in the Republican Party pre that. And they're like, before that, the Republicans, there were just as many pro-choice Republicans as there were pro-life Republicans at that time.
Well, I mean, Bob Dole, Reagan, as governor, passed abortion in California. Abortion was legal in California under Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, the guy that had threatened to have boats off the coast of Northern California to bomb Berkeley because he didn't like the protests. That Ronald Reagan. I mean, so it was not the language of the day to have this religious confusion, this conflating the two things with the Republicans. That didn't happen until the 70s, man.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you though. I mean, so there's like 25 folks running for the Democrats. I mean, we don't need to go through every one of them, but like in the top 2 or 3 or 4, who do you see honestly getting the nomination? You think Joe Biden's even got a shot?
I think he does, and he's the least. I don't have a problem. I think that they will not, that if they're smart, they will not choose an old white man
or him. He's got baggage. He's got baggage.
I mean, I think they will end up choosing a Hispanic.
Not Joaquin.
Because they need to bring back
not Julian Castro.
God, he has his own issues. I'd have said him.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That guy's the most bland. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
But, I mean, I think they're going to choose a person of color.
Well, Kamala Harris is a joke. I lived in California. She was one of the worst attorney generals we've ever had. In fact, the Republican candidate in 2010 ran to the left of her. That's a fact. He wanted to get rid of 3 strikes, legalize pot.
I don't think she will get it. I think that
not Booker.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
He's gonna have to eat some superpower pills, man, because that guy is as white as me. Yeah, that guy is just bland as fuck, and
but he can appeal across the board.
To who? People that like bland black people.
Well,
I mean, the guy he's not, and his record is horrible.
Yes, they won't. They're not going to tout his record.
You don't need the internet will tout his record. If Biden got the nomination, the internet's going to tout his record. I could cite his record by rote.
It's going to be, and the last 3 will be, Beto O'Rourke.
You think?
Booker, Cory Booker,
okay.
And one of the women.
Not Liz Warren.
There's a possibility for that.
She can run the Fed. She can run the Fed. God bless her heart. But there's finger wagging at the banks and then no legislation to back it up. Go fuck yourself. I mean, excuse me. She's as soon as she backed Hillary Clinton, knowing
hasn't her people suffered enough?
Oh yeah.
I did not say that.
She's of a warrior.
That'll come back.
She's of a warrior culture. But I usually pay top dollar for that kind of action. So if that bites you in the ass for free, you're lucky. So Booker, Beto, and you're thinking Warren?
I'm thinking Warren. The only other old person, if Joe Biden, or depending on what Joe Biden can offer Warren, or Bernie,
right?
If Joe Biden can offer Warren Secretary of State,
right, he'll get her to back down. Yeah, he'll get her to give her the delegates.
He'll get her delegates.
Right.
The problem is Joe Biden knows how to play the game, and the rest of the people that are running, they don't realize he hasn't started calling any chips yet.
No, he hasn't. And I think the VP thing gave him a little bit of juice. But this isn't 10 years ago anymore, man. His record. And I'm sorry, he coined the term super predator. If you hated Hillary for saying it, he's the one who made it up. The crime bill, gutting welfare, gutting Glass-Steagall, voting for Iraq. I mean, the guy is just one. He's Trump with nicer tweets. That's all he is, man. He's going to be Donald Trump with nicer tweets.
He can't constantly keep saying, I was Obama's vice president.
Yeah, because guess what? You're not running.
I mean, that's all he has to offer.
Yeah, you're not running for vice president anymore, dude. But hey, listen, we got a few minutes left. 2020. Are you going to run?
Yeah, I'm running for something.
Oh, okay, you haven't picked it out yet.
There's some people that want me to run for the U.S. House.
Okay.
So that would be U.S. Texas District 19,
okay.
Or the Texas House District 88.
Okay.
Those are the 2 we're looking at. But in 2022, they want me to run another statewide race.
Okay. Well, I mean, you thinking lieutenant governor again, or what are you thinking?
It's
kind of far ahead.
I think that it'll be lieutenant governor again. I just need to talk to the other players. I know that sounds really bad, but because we have great people to run, I don't want 3 really great people that could do the job and could get great numbers for libertarians to all 3 run for the same office when we could pick different things.
Right.
And that doesn't mean that the libertarians dictate to people what they're going to run and who they're going to run and how they're going to run.
I get you.
It's just because we have so few people, we need to be smart with the way we do it.
No, I get you, man. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, and just like really quick, I never talked to Dan Patrick about coming on the show. I met Mike Collier, at an event, and I won't name the event because I don't want to get in trouble. But he's basically running as GOP light, right? I mean, he wasn't doing anything particularly progressive, and so anyway, I approached him. It's my day job thing, so I gave him my business card. Hey, listen, man, I run a podcast. Love to have you come on. He gives me his number, gives me his email. Reach out to him. He gets on the phone with me one time, and he says, "Hey, man, heard your show, heard a couple of episodes. You think you could just not swear? Because I got grandkids." I'm like, no problem. But I'm going to ask you the kind of questions, because I sent him a couple of links. I sent him this one Democratic person who was running, I sent him, Neil Dykeman, who came on. He's running for Senate. He came on. So I sent him those 2 links. Hey, this is how I handle folks running for office. You might want to. He goes, "Can you just not swear?" I said, "Absolutely, I cannot swear, but I'm going to ask you those kinds of questions, right? So if you're cool with that, we're fine." You go, "Yeah, no, we're fine. I'm going to have you talk to my guy." 3 months of talking to his guy. Never got him on the show. And I'm telling you why. Because the guy is your typical dyed-in-the-wool corporate Democrat. And he did not want to come on the show and talk about the kind of stuff that you and I are talking about, to at least the transparency that you're talking about. Very few people, you, Howie Hawkins, Sema Hernandez, who's running for the Democratic nomination against John Cornyn this year in 20. She's been on a few times. It's people that, like you guys, that will come on because you're honest, and not that these people are necessarily criminals, but they're not being completely straight with themselves, and therefore
they're scripted.
They're scripted, absolutely. So, like, if I brought Collier on, for example, and he was a nice guy, I mean, but they're all nice guys. They're all nice people. They're not. When I saw Joe Biden talking, Dick Cheney was a good guy to me when I was transitioning. The guy's a goddamn war criminal. Hitler was great to Eva Braun, I'm sure. And he was a vegetarian who didn't drink. So
he loved his schnauzer.
He loved his schnauzer. His schnauzer was named Shotzi, and Shotzi was a great schnauzer. And it's like, but he killed a fuck ton of people. It's like the nice thing. Can I have a beer with you? Anyway, man, listen. We're about out of time, but really, and we didn't even talk about your because you've been working with a theater group for a little bit too. I want you.
Yep, the Lubbock Community Theater in Lubbock, Texas, and I just got to do a 9 to 5 the musical, and I'll be working with them in some of their seasons to help them out, probably teaching some classes, maybe directing some shows, acting in some shows. Just keeping my chops home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, because you're no joke, dude. You've got a resume.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was on Arrested Development. I was a freedom guy on Arrested Development for about 6 or 7 episodes. I mean, that's a picture and a half right there.
In the business.
I'm surprised that wasn't it. That'll be used against me at some point as I get better numbers.
In the business, they call that an arc.
Yeah. Thankfully, I've not jumped any sharks lately. So
that's okay.
That's
okay. Listen, man, I couldn't get arrested in El Monte, California, much less get on Arrested Development. So God bless your heart, man. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Well, hey, listen, man. Let me.
As always, I enjoy it.
Hey, well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and we'll definitely be having you on again in the coming months, and really appreciate this rundown that you had. Obviously, you know your stuff and you've been around. So, on that note, I'm going to have to start wrapping up. But folks, my guest has been Kerry McKennon. He was the lieutenant governor candidate for the Libertarian Party in 2018, and he's probably going to run in 20 or 22. And we'll see how that goes over the coming months. But for sure, he's obviously a wealth of information. I'm glad he came on the show. Patreon.com/The Bitter Truth if you want to support the show and become a bitter pill. And as always, if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.